The Fairphone Fairbuds are great. Suck.
We need to talk about it. Namaste, we're DHRME, dynamic heroes raising magical energy.
This is a DHRME style A, B, C, D, E, F review, but today we're starting backwards with F. F stands for future-proofing and fixability.
A degraded battery is the biggest reason that wireless earbuds end up in the trash. What if you could replace them? That's where the Fairbuds really provide hope, and that's their headlining feature, removable batteries. Now, on the buds, you can do that pretty easily, no extra tools required. And the batteries themselves are available over the shelf. Now, they may not be available around the corner at every supermarket, but they are very accessible to normal consumers. And the process, like I said, is super easy to do. All you need are your nails. So you just pry off the silicone band around the earbud, you pull open the hatch, which houses the battery, you slide out the battery and you can replace it. And that's it. And interestingly, these buds are IP54 rated, but you should handle the band and the earbud drawer carefully, else you might end up compromising that IP rating in some way. We'll talk about battery life in the B for build, but for now, let's talk about the other removable battery.
The other removable battery is in the case. Compared to the ones in the buds, there's a couple of differences here. Obviously, it's bigger, and it's one big cell as opposed to two tiny ones. But these are also not available commercially in an electronics store or otherwise. You have to order these from Fairphone. Fairphone did say that the cells inside are available, on the market, and they put those together in their own enclosure. So there is that. Now, to remove this battery from the case, it's super simple. I would argue even simpler than the ones on the earbuds. One screwdriver, take it off, pop off that plastic thing around the case. Just take it out, fully replaceable. Okay, once you take the screw off, the plastic around the case is also replaceable, and that's a nice touch because this is the stuff that is going to be exposed to the elements. So if it gets scratched up or cracked, you can just replace that bit out. Fairphone told us initially that they wanted this plastic to be clear, but they ended up using a different material because recycled plastics just tend to look like they've already aged, even when they're fresh. So to make it look transparent, they would have to look something else, and this is what they have gone with. But Fairphone goes, a step above repairability and recycled components and things like that. It has also put a lot of thought into its use of cobalt, gold, tin, plastic, etc. And from using fair or recycled sources to compensating for cobalt, these earbuds are not just trying to be repairable, but also ethical in a way that we just don't see in tech anymore.
Also, many other things in terms of fair practices like paying their workers in factories a fair wage. From fixability to future-proofing. There is long-term support on these buds because Fairphone provides an extended warranty if you purchase these buds of 3 years. Also, the replacement parts will be available until the year 2030. And when asked, Fairphone said their real limitation to making these buds last much longer was the Bluetooth chip inside. You can also buy replacement parts. The batteries, like we said, the silicone rings, the inside and outside of the charging case separately. But the coolest thing we think is that you can buy each bud separately and just put it in the case and pair them. No firmware shenanigans required. Guys, these buds might be fair in terms of fixability and future-proofing, but we're gonna be fair and review these buds like any other. And we'll continue our countdown. E for extras.
We'll start with the app, guys, because it's super basic, at least right now. In fact, when we bought these buds and I started testing them, the app wasn't even available on the Play Store, but we're happy to say now it is available on the Play Store and the App Store. But there's not much you can do with it except EQ. There's an 8-band EQ in the app, and Fairphone was very, insistent that they launch this with custom EQ, and they've done that, so kudos to that. You can also do firmware update, but that's pretty much it. It's very, very bare bones. You cannot even change ANC mode on it, which is, something you'd just expect. Now from the software to the hardware, you do get an optical wear sensor for smart pause. So taking the buds out of the ear and putting them back in pauses and plays your music respectively, and it works well enough. There are no other extras. There is nothing included in the box in terms of accessories. Of course, you get ear tips, which we'll talk about. But there is no charging cable and of course no charger in the box. That box is very much in keeping with Fairphone's philosophy of, all paper, no plastic. So that's also nice to see. Luckily, we are in 2024 and every set of earbuds that are being released these days have the ability to connect to two devices at once, also called multi-point. And you can connect to two devices at once also with the Fairbuds. We tried it with a MacBook, an iPhone, a Windows laptop as well, just two at a time, and it seemed to work fairly well. But there is no device list in the app in case you want to see which one it's connected to. There is a big button in the case though for pairing if you want to kind of switch the buds around. And you can pull connection from a previously paired device if you are connected to two devices. All right, from the ethereal extras to the physical design.
And that design is quite plain looking, to be honest. It's somewhere between a bud and a stem style shaped design. It's very similar to the Bose QC Buds series. In terms of colors, very simple. You either get black and there's white. That's it. The way the controls work is with a touch surface on each earbud, and there's no customization in the app. The controls that you do have are volume controls with a swipe on the bud. You can change the ANC mode, you can play, pause, answer, hang up, and call up your voice assistant. But what about controlling our popsicles, icicles, and tests?
Pop, popsicle, ice, icicle, testing. 1, 2, 3.
Overall, on the recorded mic test, the voice clarity and suppression of background noise, they seem alright. But real life use was something else, especially for Kevin. A lot of people said that he wasn't loud enough and it sounded like his voice was coming from far in the distance. So do with that information what you will. But if you're a fuckman, the fuckman controls are a little bit on the bare bones side again. Anyway, you get volume control, you get answer, reject, and hang up only. There is no ability to mute phone calls using your buds, and you can hear your own voice when on a call, but you're not able to adjust this with side tone or ANC and transparency. But no amount of phone calls are going to be useful if you don't count down to C for comfort. Yes, we have 2 C's. Sue us.
And comfortable these buds are. But before we get to that, you get 4 sizes of tips included in the box, and they are oval shaped. The seal is fairly good, but you need to choose the tips wisely to get the best passive seal. In terms of secureness of fit, let's just say they're more comfortable than secure. But what about the buds attached to those tips and the case which holds the buds?
We already talked a lot about the build, but here are some highlights again. The plastic outer shell can be replaced. The case isn't very small. It's also not very big, and it is flat, so it is pocketable. They did manage an IP54 rating on the buds, which is incredible considering this is a repairable and openable device. But buyer beware, if you mess around with the rubber ring too much, or you don't close the tray properly or whatever, these will not be IP54 anymore. That's a big difference from pre-glued earbuds which you get. There's also no wireless charging, and this was, to be fair, a Fairphone philosophy also on the phone to prevent battery degradation. They claim the battery life at 6 hours, and we got about 4.5 hours with ANC on and on ANC, more on the sound in a bit. And on these buds, those are completely forgivable or passable numbers. We are here. A for audio. Let's start with ANC.
For ANC, in our testing, we put it in tier D. We'd say the Fairbuds reduces all background noise a few notches, but that's it. It doesn't excel at any one frequency. You still hear the lows, mids, and highs quite a bit. In terms of transparency mode, it came in at tier C. A little bit better, and it does an okay job at letting in ambient sounds. For general ambient awareness, these will do, but if you're after a less suppressed and more natural sounding transparency mode, then these aren't it. We'd say these are quite similar in performance to the One More Evo. And on top of that, you get 0 ANC options in the app though. You can't adjust the amount of ANC or transparency, there's no wind reduction mode, you can't even see which mode you're on in the app. The way you change the ANC mode though is by long pressing on the right earbud. It cycles between ANC, ANC off, and ambient mode. But, you saw this coming, there's no way to customize these controls in the app.
Audio quality. Now you are not getting any high-res codecs, you're only getting AAC right now. In our interview with Fairphone, they have said that their hardware supports LDAC and they might consider releasing LDAC over a software update, but it's not something they said they will do, they're considering it, so that's just a promise. In terms of max volume level, these were fairly okay. Not the loudest buds out there, but they were fine for us. But there are no other sound features you get. No spatial audio, low latency, a custom hearing test, none of that. You do get an 8-band EQ with some presets. All right, you want to hear more about the sound? I hope you're sitting down because I'm about to. All right, guys, we are going to talk about the measurements of the Fairphone Fairbuds as they were when they were released. They might be updated later, we don't know, we got a report. what we see. Don't shoot the messenger. There are two presets you get, a bass boost and a flat, and you get a third thing called studio, which is confusing because studio usually means flat, but whatever. Studio is actually the custom EQ profiles that you're gonna manage. So let's start with the flat EQ. So this is the flat EQ with ANC off, and I'm also gonna look at the flat EQ with ANC on. There you go. So right off the bat, there is a little bit of variance between ANC on and ANC off, especially you see a bit of a spike at the 8K region when ANC is enabled. Not earth-shattering differences, but for me, actually the biggest problem is, I think Fairphone thought flat means that the graph should look flat, whereas actually if you look at any of earbuds, what sounds flat to us because of our ear canal and the way we measure things, just to keep it very simple, should have somewhat of a bump in this 2 to 4K region. So I'll just take any random one. Look at the Oppo Enco X2. You see there's a bump here at this region, or let's just take the Sennheiser IE200, completely different buds, right? There's a bump here between the 2 and 3K. Somehow they have taken flat to mean the line needs to be flat, but actually what we are hearing is then an underemphasis in the 2 to 4K region, and that leads to things sounding a bit dark and muffled sometimes. So that is one thing I think they need to fix. They need to look at this ear gain region. How do I like the sound? Well, I would say middle of the road, and I'm talking for true wireless earbuds, not even for like wired buds. Think they can fix a lot of things with EQ. I'm very doubtful if they can fix the treble with EQ. I thought the treble sounded just a bit cheap for my taste. And now that might be an AAC or LDAC thing. I don't believe it is, because the status between 3A and C also uses AAC and they sound fantastic. So I think that the drivers are probably not great is my feeling. We'll of course check the updates when they come out, but for now these buds don't sound that great. And it's not that they sound flat, at least that's what Fairphone told us. We went for a flat sound, people want a more exciting sound. I would say flat is fine, but the treble sounded a bit too cheap for my taste. And there's a ton of bugs as well. And especially, and we talked about this with Fairphone and they acknowledged it, they might be fixing those bugs. Let's move away from flat and let's look at bass boost. What you're seeing here is the graph for the same EQ. So on the left earbud, it's the top bit here. And on the right earbud, it's this one. So there is some bug where the EQs are not syncing to both earbuds together, and they themselves admitted, which I liked, is that they're not an audio company at heart. So these are the things I think that will get ironed out either via software updates or maybe in the next iteration of these buds. But just know that the EQ presets right now don't work very well. Not a go for sound, guys, for me. Sorry, Fairphone. We love you guys.
All right, to buy or not to buy?
I mean, I'm just going to be like super honest with you guys, super transparent. Like, I don't think that we necessarily set out to be the best on any of those tech aspects, right? Again, that just has to do with the price category that we can compete in, but also with us as a company developing in this category itself. Like with mixed feelings, I've been reading those reviews, right? Because I see, okay, the sound is being judged as too flat, the ANC as okay, ENC has its issues, and then I see in those reviews, okay, they are indeed then again being compared to a AirPod, a Pixel, and I mean, it's fair, right? Because that's the baseline now, and that's what you get for 150 euros. Yeah, okay. That's something that we will offer over time, but might not offer yet.
Hey, and you also said, a lot of reviewers are comparing it to the AirPods and Google Pixel and all of that and Samsung. If there's one thing that you would want to ask, where would you want reviewers to compare these buds to?
I encourage them to do so, because we want to compete with those guys, right? I'm not asking for people's sympathy. You can be brutally honest, because we're gonna make this product better. So yeah, tell me what we need to do.
Good to hear that. Okay. You should never buy a product with the hope of it improving with future software updates. And although Fairphone told us they're working on it, we wouldn't recommend you buy these buds based on that promise. If you manage to get a good sound by tweaking that EQ, well, Good on you. For 150 euros, you're not getting anything that you can't get for much less. The reason to buy these buds is a few-fold: value, sustainability, and repairability, and longevity. These buds might outlast cheaper buds by a factor of 3. Fairphone also provides a 3-year warranty, which takes a little bit of the sting out of the price. But other than that, there's no way we can recommend these buds in their current state.
However, personally, none of that matters. These buds are the beginning of something we've been talking about for the last half a decade at least. Wireless earbuds are becoming too much of a disposable product, and all those sealed and glued parts just end up in landfill. So hopefully the Fairbuds can move the industry forward, and if not, maybe the next iteration will get the rest of the product right. Till then, they've given it a fair shot.
And guys, we bought these earbuds with our own money, and the fact that we can do that is thanks to you guys, our patrons and YouTube members. Thanks a lot for your support, and a special thanks goes out to our Fuck Month tier supporters, Radioactive Iguana Dude, Paula, and Gamma Panda. Thank you very, very much.
You've been Fairbuds.
And we've been DHRME. Dewey! What about controlling our popsicles, icicles, and testimonializing of the microphones?